Hi, Charles as a BookSage here, and this is my 2020 Booktube reading recap video. I actually had a really good reading year in 2020. The first thing I did at the beginning of the year was I set my Goodreads reading goal. Like we all do that who use Goodreads. I always usually put 50 books, but for 2020 I put 24 because I never hit 50, so I figured let me just kind of put 24. Why not? And I ended up reading 44 books, which was actually a pretty good year for me. Now, I actually started 4 big, long series this year. I began Malazan. Now, there's Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is a 10-book fantasy series. And then there's the Books of Malazan or whatever, which is a whole nother side series written by a second author, and the 2 authors work together. So I'm actually reading both of those put together in a particular reading order. So I've read 4 of those so far in 2020, 3 of the main series and 1 of the side series, and really, really loving it. I also started the Louis McMaster Bujold's For Corsican saga. It's a sci-fi space opera saga. It's one of those big, epic, award-winning series that as a sci-fi reader has been sitting out there for decades, waiting, and I knew I would get to it. Well, 2020 was finally that year. And I also started David Weber's Honor Harrington series, which is another sort of military space opera inspired, I guess, by Horatio Hornblower series, which Horatio Hornblower, Honor Harrington, HH. Really loving that too. Now, a long time ago, I did read the first Harrington book on Basilisk Station. I enjoyed it. Thought it was a solid space opera book, but I didn't continue on with the series, though I had plans to eventually get around to it. And here we are 12, 13 years later, and I finally did. 5 books into that as well. I read 4 Malazan, 5 Vorkosigan, 5 Harrington, and in July, because that's not enough, I finally started reading the Dresden Files, and I'm 4 books into that. Let's do people who love stats, let's do the stats breakdown. I read 44 books. I've got my stats over here. 14,213 pages. My average rating was 4.2 stars. I generally start at a 3-star and then work up from there. I've generally been pretty good / lucky at picking things that I know I'm going to enjoy. Even experimental books outside my normal reading, I've been pretty lucky that they've been books I've really enjoyed. It's very rare when I come across a book that I kind of just don't enjoy. And I didn't have that this year. Let's see, the average book length was 323 pages, which was significantly down from 2019. 2019, I believe, I looked it up, it's 569 pages. And that's mainly because 2019 was predominantly big, giant, epic fantasy books. 2019 was me finishing The Wheel of Time, finishing Thomas Covenant, among other things. So not surprising that my average book length is quite down this year. The shortest book I read was 16 pages, which was a piece of flash fiction. The longest book I read was 945 pages. And for people who are interested in these kind of demographic breakdowns, 24 were written by women, 18 by men, and 1 co-authored by a man and a woman, who's actually husband and wife. There were 2 3-stars, 32 4-stars, and 10 5-star reads. Now, what's interesting is, even though I have 10 5-star reads, my top 5 reads of the year contain 2 4-star books and 3 5-star books. Now, I know what you may be thinking. It's well, if 2 4-star books made it into your top 5, then maybe they were 5-star reads, and some of those 5-star reads were really 4-star reads. But they're not. There's a reason and method to how 2 4-star books ended up on my top 5 reads of the year. And my top 5 reads is actually going to be a separate video, because this video would be massively too long if I went over those 5 reads in this book. So that's going to be my very next video coming up right after this. I'm going to link it down below and in the cards once I actually have the video uploaded. So if you're watching this right away, it's not available yet. If you're watching this maybe next week, you'll see the links. Just a really good reading year. One of the things that I made a conscious effort to do in 2020 is, I'm Irish. My mother's family were Irish, and my father's family were Scottish. You know, I have 2 very, very different sides of the family. Irish and Scottish are very, very different from each other. At least our families are. And I've realized I've been remiss in exploring Irish and Scottish authors. It's been way too long since I took a dive into any of their works. So I began and ended 2020 reading Kirsty Logan novels. I bookended the year, started with The Grace Keepers and ended with The Gloaming. Really enjoyed both. Her prose just like flows onto the page. Beautiful, beautiful prose. Beautiful storyteller. It was a great way to start and end the year. Which brings me into my genres I read for the year. All right. There's magical realism, LGBTQ, which I guess were the Kirsty Logan novels. There's high fantasy, urban fantasy, space opera, contemporary LGBTQ, Doctor Who, which Doctor Who is its own category always, no matter what, books, TV shows, whatever. Sci-fi horror, Asian historical fantasy, which is also an LGBTQ, historical romance, classic, which was Sense and Sensibility, post-apocalyptic indigenous urban fantasy. There was a self-help personal development book, and African futurism, African Judaism, and a children's holiday picture book, sort of. So a pretty wide variety of things read. I also finally got to do my Acoratober. I first joined Booktube in September of 2017. I discovered it in the summer of 2017, spent like a month or two devouring videos, and decided I can do that. Joined in September. Sam from Sam's Nonsense was about to do a readathon, and I didn't know readathons existed. And she did this I Sat Rat, which stood for I Suck at Readathons readathon. So I asked if I could join. She invited me right in, had a wonderful time, and then I realized one of my favorite authors is Nnedi Okorafor. And I was thinking, it's like, I really want to do like a Nnedi Okorafor month. And October seemed like the perfect month. Okorafor, October, Acoratober just seemed like, hey, it goes together. How can I not? Now, yes, there's 10 billion readathons that go on in October. I didn't care. 2018 went by, didn't get to do it. 2019 went by, I didn't get to do it. And in November in 2019, I made a commitment that I was doing Acoratober in 2020. No matter what was going on, I didn't care. I finally did it. And October, it stretched in through November as well. And October and November were just like the two busiest work months of the year for me. So it was just madness work-wise. But I took my time, and it was just a reading project for myself. It was just a wonderful, wonderful reading experience. If you're not familiar with Nnedi Okorafor, she's a Nice American author. Her parents are from Nigeria. She was born and raised here in America, and she writes African futurism and African Judaism. Wonderful imagination. And what I like about her as an author is she pulls no punches, and she takes stories in unexpected directions. If you think you know it's coming, yeah, you don't know it's coming. I like to think, oh, I can see where this is going, and then nope. Yeah, no, not at all. So really, really great stuff. I had such a great reading experience. And I read a bunch of her things. The flash fiction was one of hers. Some short stories, some novellas, some novels, a graphic novel. And for those interested, HBO has been working with Nnedi Okorafor on developing her novel Who Fears Death into an HBO series. If they can manage to actually pull this off and do it right, that is going to be a tour de force series. I don't know how they're going to manage to do that, but that is going to be an amazing television experience if they manage to do it right. Hulu is working with a production company, I believe, developing her Binti novellas into a series for Hulu as well. So it's wonderful to see like the entertainment side of like TVs and stuff taking an interest in her stories. Now I will say Who Fears Death was my favorite Nnedi Okorafor read until one of the books I read during Acoratober knocked it out of the top spot. You'll discover what that book is in my top 5 reads of 2020 video that I still have to film. That'll be up soon after this. I was just really, really happy, and I'm definitely doing that again this year in October of 2021. I don't really know if I have much else to say. It was just a really fantastic reading year in a just a year of insanity. I'm really looking forward to a great 2021 reading year as well. Got a lot planned for 2021. I've got to actually film my top 5 2020 reads video and my 2021 reading goals video, both right after this. Really excited for 2021 Booktube. Not just reading, but for Booktube as well. Got a lot planned. A particular special shout out to Krista, the Bookish Porcupine, for turning me on to what turned out to be my favorite read of 2020. And to Krista, and as well as Ashley of Don't Have a Good Degree in Reading, for turning me on to an author who's quickly becoming one of my favorites. But you'll hear about that, who those authors and books are in my top 5 video coming soon. But I just want to give a special shout out to both Krista and Ashley for really enhancing my 2020 reading year. Thank you very much. And with that, bye 2020. Hello 2021. I am Charles with SirBookSage. Happy reading.